Hey there, Steve-O the Tyre Man. In this edition, we're going to start getting a bit technical and look at understanding the calculation of inflation pressures. Okay, so this episode's really aimed at four-wheel drivers, owners of light commercial vehicles, more specifically if you've got modified four-wheel drives that are now a lot heavier than a standard vehicle and have different tyre sizes, your tyre placard recommendation really doesn't relate to your vehicle anymore. So, knowing your vehicle weights is really important, and obviously matching that to your tyre size to work out our pressures. We're going to explain that. If you're towing, obviously we're looking at towable weights, increased loads on rear axles and so on. So correct inflation pressures are quite important and are going to be, again, quite different from what the placard recommends. Look, other light commercials and applications, a bit of an example would be, utes with heavy loads, and also, utes with slide-on campers and so. This is all these applications are quite different to what the placard's describing. So, we need to be a bit more accurate with our calculation pressures and work out what is needed to carry the load safely. So we're going to start with trying to understand the basics here, and then we're going to finish with if you're an owner of one of these vehicles or this type of vehicle, how to actually go about getting accurate inflation pressures to suit your specific application. And really importantly, one size doesn't fit all. Depending on tyre size, loads, all these many variables. So your inflation pressures are going to vary quite considerably. So let's get into it, and let's first do a little bit of a theory lesson so we're got a bit of an understanding of what we're actually doing here. And look, really simply, we're looking at how tyres work, okay? How they generate heat, and the relationship between pressure, load, and speed, okay? And when we're a four-wheel driver, these things are really important to match those three things to make sure we're getting optimum traction, and we're making sure we're not overheating tyres. Okay, so let's get into the theory lesson, and let's look simply how tyres work, okay? So really simply, pressure, and this is a really simple thing, and a bit of I think there's a lot of myths about this as well, about what pressure does and the role of pressure. So your inflation pressure is essential to carry the load, okay? So it's not the tyre or the tyre sidewall that carries the load, it's the pressure that tyre has that carries the load, okay? And that's why, really simply, we need to match those two. And why is this, Steve? How does it work? Show me, okay? Let's have a look. Okay, so as a tyre rolls down the road or over rough terrain, whatever that might be, those sidewalls compress or deflect, whatever you would like to call it. As that happens, the tyre generates heat internally, okay? And that's really from the friction between all those internal components. So, as we can see that tyre rolling, we can see that sidewall compress. So, if we have a lower pressure for the same load, we'll get more actual sidewall deflection. The more sidewall deflection or compression there is, the more heat we generate. So, if we're running a lower pressure and getting more sidewall deflection, or we're going to generate more heat, okay? If we get too much of that sidewall deflection or compression, we get too much heat, and that's when the tyre will start to fail and break up or fall apart, if you like, in really simple terms. The other thing that's really important is speed, okay? As we increase speed, we're getting more tyre compressions, if you like, over a certain or specific time period, okay? So, with more speed, we generate more heat. The more heat we generate quicker, okay? Slow that speed down, less compressions per period of time, okay? And look, this basic concept here allows us to run lower pressures if we are running at lower speeds. Now, if we're looking at four-wheel drive applications, this allows that lower pressure at a lower speed. So let's look at practical examples. Okay, so we're on unsealed dirt roads and we're looking at making sure we're not doing an average speed over 80 k's an hour. And that's a pretty standard sort of recommendation. Okay, on sand or off-road, it might be a maximum average around 40 k's an hour. So that slower speed allows us to run lower pressure. That allows more sidewall flexibility and a longer footprint. Okay, that longer footprint gives us more traction. On sand, most importantly, it gives more flotation. So that bigger footprint lets the tyre sit on top of the sand rather than dig in, and minimises the chances of us getting bogged. Just as importantly, when we're running unsealed roads, if we can run a lower pressure than we do on sealed roads, and by minimising our average speed to make sure we're not overheating that tyre, that will give that tyre again greater flexibility, a bit more traction with that longer footprint, and probably more importantly, on unsealed dirt roads, it minimises the chances of shoving rocks through the centre of the tyre. Okay, and look, it's unsealed roads that kill more tyres than off-road, usually again shoving rocks through the centre of the tyre. Okay, so that's the basic theory of it works. So most importantly, we're looking straight. Let's forget about the speed bit to start with. We need to match the inflation pressure with the load carried, so we're not getting too much sidewall compression, okay, and therefore too much heat generated in that tyre. Okay, so really simply, first we need to know the load so we can work out what pressure we need. Okay, and that's the big thing. What do we do? Okay, so we need to know the load. So the really simple way is to get your vehicle weighed. Okay, so, and really importantly is we weigh the vehicle with front and rear axles separately. Okay, because more often than not, the loads on each axle are quite different. If we're looking at utes especially, once we load up or we have a fair bit of tow ball weight, the rear axle load is usually considerably more than the front axle. So we need to know that rather than estimate. Can we estimate it? Yes, but we're always going to get a much better result if we're absolutely sure about that, and weighing the vehicle is the way to do it. Now, what can you use to weigh the vehicle? Okay, so your local weighbridge might be able to do that. What is really popular now is your mobile weighing. Okay, so this has come about mainly to help people with their towing setups to make sure they're legal. So there's quite a few mobile towing services around, especially around major centres in Australia and obviously capital cities. These towing services, weighing services, will usually do quite a few things as far as the weighing. So they'll weigh the vehicle usually without the caravan or the trailer as such. So your vehicle weight on its own. They'll weigh the tow ball weight separately, mainly to make sure that is legal within legal requirements and within the vehicle manufacturer specifications. Then they'll weigh the whole setup together, usually your vehicle with the trailer or caravan or camper or whatever it might be attached. So we're looking at, then we can be very accurate with the axle weights on the vehicle and on the trailer when it's all hooked up as it should be. What's really good about these mobile weighing services, or the concept here, is we can check legalities of your vehicle and your towing setup at the same time as getting some great accurate figures to check tyre pressures. Okay, so for me, those figures are gold. I can be very accurate with my tyre pressure recommendations using that. And yeah, if you do get your vehicle weighed, they won't always do them separate, like your vehicle separate, then your towing setup. If you can do that, then we can give you pressure recommendations for the vehicle when it's not towing, when it is towing, and again, we can be very accurate about that. Now, just a bit of a shout out, there's quite a lot of these mobile towing services about, mainly due to the explosion or the increase in number of caravans about and people wanting to make sure their setups are legal. One of these services that is local to me is called Your Way. They've been around for several years now doing this, very professional Great at giving, once they give you your weights, tips on improving your towing setup to minimise driver fatigue, and look, most importantly, improving safety of your setup and making it a lot easier for towing. Okay, so Your Way, they do Sydney Metro, Southern Highlands mainly. Okay, that's mainly where they do. And looking at Southern Queensland, down under Weighing. Okay, again, very experienced people. Yeah, if you need your vehicle weighing in those areas, yeah, I can highly recommend those two services. Okay, all right. Yeah, so looking at legalities, this is a really good way to have, as I already mentioned, of improving your towing setup. Making sure your weights, well, your axle weights are legal, not just legal, but yeah, maximising your setup to optimise the safety of your setup. Okay, so just on that, look, I get a few of these weighbridge tickets come by my desk often, and look, now and then you see some stuff that's a bit scary, and I saw one recently that raised more flags than a Communist Party convention. Okay, what surprised me about it was that these people come back to our tyre dealer with two tyres on the rear of the vehicle that are overheated very early in their life. You know, okay, red flag number one. Okay, had no idea of pressures. Look, my recommendation straight away is to go and get it weighed. When it come back, yeah, it had a lot of issues. Okay, over its GVM, over its rear axle code, and the one as a tyre man that spooked me was one of the rear tyres was way over its maximum load capability, and it's pretty rare you see something that spooky, if you like, or scary. Yeah, and look, they had, what surprised me is they really didn't have any idea that they had issues with their setup, and yeah, looking at that really surprised me that they could drive that without knowing that. But there you go, okay? Learning's always good. All right, so once you get these numbers, contact your tyre manufacturer, okay? If you've bought a brand name tyre, they'll be able to give you their recommendations and accurately for pressures on your vehicle to get maximum performance, and obviously better than, or at least safe or better than safe performance out of your tyres, okay? Okay, all right, a lot of you will say, Steve-O, online there's load inflation tables. I can work it out myself. Sure you can, okay? Those load inflation tables is what we tyre experts use as a basis, as a start to do those pressure recommendations, okay? But, okay, those tables will give you a really simple number that is the minimum pressure to carry that load. Is that okay? It's okay. Is that the best option? No, it's not. Okay, it's not. That's why I highly recommend you talk to your tyre manufacturer. They will do some other calculations in addition to that will give you usually a better result than just the basic load inflation table result. Okay, and that's why I highly recommend that. If you have purchased a product where you don't have that service, message me, okay? Or email me at tyreassess@gmail.com. Message me, I can do that service for you at a fee, obviously, okay? Steve doesn't work for nothing. Not all the time, although here, I'm not really getting paid, but look, I love sharing my learning with people to make sure they're safe on the road, okay? And get the best value out of their tyres. All right, that's pretty much it. I think we've covered most things. Please like, subscribe, okay? I think this little bit of content is going to be probably the best one I've done yet, and obviously the most educational and important regarding safety, especially for commercial vehicles that are fairly heavily loaded or towing. Look, just one other thing before I finish. Recently in my day job, I did a YouTube vid with John Cadigan from Auto Expert regarding EV tyre replacement. So I think that went really well, quite educational. So check it out. All right, brilliant. Thanks very much.